Hey everyone, it's Selwen here. Let's go over Demonology Warlock today. Now, Demo has always been in this weird place ever since the Legion revamp, right? When Demon Hunters came and took all of our fun toys. I think many Demo players are still very salty about that, myself included, but I think that the new version that we gotten, and that has gotten yet another rework in BFI to some extent, is a spec with a lot of potential. We have a lot of cool ideas in this spec, and being a very summoner-centric spec, we have a lot of cool things we can do. Although I do gotta say that, considering that we are a spec all about summoning demons and being the master of demons and so on, we have the other Warlock specs like Destruction, which is carrying crazy infernals, right? That now we have talents that is summoning even more than one infernal. We're getting 4 or 5 infernals at the same time, wrecking everything in sight. We have Affliction, which has this one-eyed blob demon thing that shoots lasers, man, lasers. And then we have Demonology, which is the master of demons, the master that controls all the demons, blah blah blah. And what we control, what we summon for the most part is Imps and freaking demon dogs. Like, come on. Now, yes, you do get the Tyrant, and we get the Nether portal, which summons a lot of cool and crazy pets. But I think the spec needed to have something crazier, something more epic, like more Doom Guards and more Infernals as well. Just because the Destruction has them doesn't mean that Demonology cannot have them as well. I mean, we needed more crazy big demons in the spec, even if for other players they would be small, because obviously that can cause issues. But I think we needed something like that to be more epic, to be more badass and awesome. Other than that, mechanically, when it comes to gameplay, I think Demonology always had some fundamental issues ever since Legion. Of course, we have a huge ramp-up time, we have a lot of trouble target switching, it's a huge hassle, and when it comes to that, it just sucks, and I think it's something that could be fixed in the current way that the spec is working. The changes that we've gotten so far in Shadowlands is not specifically fixing that. It is helping for sure, it is helping, and we're gonna talk about them, but it's something that's, yes, it needed to be looked at more deeply. And also, another issue that demos always had is that they don't really feel a role, right? Because the two other specs can basically do all that we can do, but better, and that's sad, and it saddens me a lot because Demo, thematically, it's such a cool spec, and always has been such a cool spec, and the idea, the potential is all here. But anyway, let's go, before I ramble any further, let's talk about the baseline changes that we've gotten, and talents and legendaries. We don't really have conduits right now on Warlocks, but I'll make sure to update that on conduits in the near future when they come out. So, baseline changes. What has come here to demos that has helped, that is improving the spec? Well, we do have one somewhat hidden change that was pointed out some time ago, and is on your Hand of Gul'dan Imps. So now they actually appear, the animation of them appearing is much quicker, so that overall helps with the ramping up issue. It helps with your implosions in dungeons and whatnot. You can go for them much faster, they start damaging faster, which is simply nice, right? We also gotten a change to Axe Toss, so the Felguard ability. It is now interrupting, which is great. Obviously, demos always had the issue since forever, and Warlocks in general, where we don't really carry an interrupt unless we use a Fel Hunter. Now, you can argue that yes, being on this ability, it kind of sucks because now you have to choose between an interrupt and a stun all in the same ability, and those could be separate and they have different uses, and I can understand that. And personally, what I would like to see, since likely Wrath or something like that, where we have a pure interrupt, a normal interrupt like any other class, but is based on our Fel Hunter. Imagine if we had, the PvP talents have that, the call Fel Hunter, and when we press that, we get the purple portal, right? The little purple portal and the Fell Hunter would appear obviously really quickly. He would interrupt and then would just get sucked back into the portal. I think that would be so cool. Would be the coolest interrupt in the entire game when it comes to animations. Obviously, again, that would be really quick. But I don't understand really the idea of Warlocks not having a pure interrupt spell when, well, we now have in PvP talents, but I never understood that. It's the same as Paladins didn't have a taunt back in vanilla, but now they have one. It's kind of the same argument. I just don't understand that. But anyway. Besides that, we also gotten a change to curses. Okay, so now we have curses back, which is not a huge deal, but it is extra utility. We have a slow, we have a reduction on attack speed on enemies, essentially by reducing by 20%, which is great. We have Curse of Tongues as well to reduce cast time, although do take in mind that this ability is not as useful as, say, the Curse of Weakness, because it's not always usable. There's a lot of targets, a lot of enemies which are immune to Curse of Tongues, while no enemy that I have found is immune to Curse of Weakness. And I think this is defined by targets which have not interruptible casts, because it's not bosses, because I've been able to use this on certain bosses which have spells that you can interrupt. So it seems to be somewhat tied to that. It could also be a beta thing, but it seems to be tied to that, so do take that in mind. You also have Curse of Recklessness, which has its very niche use. Other than that, you also got Corruption. I don't even have this in my bar, because I don't really see where this could fit in our rotation. I get it's the unpruning, but I don't really see the point of having this. It has no synergy at all with the way the spec is playing right now. So yeah, there's that too. And other than that, the spec is pretty much the same. I don't think... Oh yes, the Tyrant. So Demonic Tyrant, which is also... it's very big actually, it's now giving you 5 soul shards. Okay, so when you press it, I guess I can show you. So when you press it, you immediately get 5, and I actually forget this when I'm playing. So in the footage in the background, you might actually see me the minute I summon my Tyrant, I go to a Shadow Bolt, and then I just remember, oh right, I just got full shards. So obviously that helps a lot in going for more, summoning more Imps or Dreadstalkers, whatever, just spending more soul shards overall. Although, at the same time, it's also very hard to make full use out of the 5 soul shards. You're gonna munch some, you're gonna overcap some shards. It's almost inevitable, but it is nice that it's giving you 5 soul shards. It gives you more burst damage overall in your openers and so on, which is obviously very nice. We also have a change to our summon pets. This is more of a PvP thing. It doesn't really harm us in PvE. So essentially now, our summon pets have a really long cast time, but we do have Fell Domination, which reduces it on a cooldown. This essentially, again, is for PvP when a pet dies, and it's to be more meaningful, so you don't just summon another, but you do have that cooldown there for you to decide when you should use that. In PvE, it can be useful if your Felguard dies for some reason, or if you happen to need some other pet for something very specific. You can use that to summon one really quickly, so that's nice too. So yeah, that covers our baseline changes. So let's take a look into our talents to see what again has changed. So in our first tier here, nothing has changed, although I do have to mention something, which is on Demonic Strength. This also still feels very powerful over these other two, and I like it, but I just don't understand also why can't, say, have this ability merge with Fellstorm. I always hated the idea of having these two abilities, which are essentially the same thing, but one is more powerful than the other. And this completely ruins this tier because, Bile Scourge Bombers is such a cool ability, right? You summon these bats and you just, the sound effect, the visual effect is so cool, it feels very demo. And I really like it, but obviously it's very situational. It's a talent that becomes dead in a single target fight. So Demonic Strength is just so much more versatile and so much more usable because it works in every situation and obviously deals a great deal of damage. So if this was just merged with Fellstorm to just be one ability, it would open up this tier for you to actually use some fun things. I just never liked the idea why we have two abilities that identically do the same thing, just have a difference in numbers. I don't really get that. And again, it kills the tier. So yeah, that covers the first tier. Then the second tier, we did get a small change to Demonic Calling, a good change. So now it's costing two fewer soul shards, like it was in Legion, I believe. So now it's completely free. This obviously helps the spec flow and you keeping up with your Dreadstalkers and keeping up with all of your minions. So overall, this really helps smooth out your rotation. Power Siphon also got a small change. It's essentially the same, but is also causing your Demon Bolt to deal 30% additional damage on those two charges of Demonic Core. So Power Siphon seems to be the more skillful choice that we have here in this tier, especially in comparison to Demonic Calling, and obviously you can synergize that with Sacrifice Souls to further increase the damage of Demon Bolt, and even from the shadows, if it's any good when it comes to numbers. But so there's that going on with Power Siphon, and we do have a legendary, which I will talk more about further, but that we do have a legendary where it makes a call the Dreadstalkers have a 25% chance to refund all the soul shards that you spent. Now this is pretty much not very useful if you use with Demonic Calling, because I've tested, and if you use it on a free proc, this never actually procs. So if you go for Power Siphon, this could potentially be a nice legendary to still keep that free, quote-unquote, Dreadstalkers. So there's that to take in mind as well. Then we have Doom, which has gone back and forth, and right now it's such a boring ability. You know, you apply it, it will do damage after 18 seconds and gives you a soul shard. There's no Doomguard component as of yet, which is really sad, so I really hope they add that to the ability, and overall just give us the goddamn Doomguard. Come on, we need a Doomguard, and we'll talk more about needing a big CD in a minute too. So yeah, Doom right now feels really boring, really boring. This year is the same. This year is the same as well. These are all the same. Soul Conduit and these other two. Again, Soul Conduit still feels like it's a must to, help out, your rotation, to smooth out your, again, your overall rotation. So still feels very mandatory for any type of content. And then in the last year, we also gotten a change to these other two. So now Demonic Consumption is, instead of consuming all of your imps, which I always found very counterintuitive and never really liked the idea of, well, you're supposed to have a lot of minions up at the same time, and that's somewhat of the skill cap involved with Demo, is the ability of having a lot of pets up at the same time. And that kind of went against that, so now it's just draining part of the life of your demon servants to empower himself, which is obviously great. Not sure how the numbers will hold up on that. Again, more on numbers later in the beta. Another portal also got a change to be more usable, so now it's only costing 1 soul shard as opposed to 3, and the cast time has also been reduced. Now, I love Nether Portal. I think there's a lot of potential with Nether Portal. Again, it's a bit more of a skill capped ability in this tier, where it rewards you good gameplay, good play, to also get more demons out. And it's one of those talents, is one of the few abilities that demos have that really makes you feel like a Demonology Warlock, because you get a lot of crazy pets out of Nether Portal, which is awesome. The same thing goes for Inner Demons, even though that is completely random. You have that small chance of actually getting that huge demon, like the Archimond-like demon, the Eredar, which is so cool. But again, you have Soul Conduit, which you feel the need to have up all the time. But yeah, Nether Portal is far more usable now. Hopefully the numbers will hold up to this ability, because it's so cool, so cool. Especially now with the shards that you're getting from Demonic Tyrant, it also helps there with Nether Portal, which is very, very nice. Again, overall, the spec still has, again, the same issues. The ramp up time is still pretty big, even though the changes help. And again, you still have the old issue where realistic scenarios where that your flow, your rotation gets interrupted, and you have to start up the process of summoning minions all over again, and that's what really harms the spec, in my opinion. And I think that's what really sucks about Demo. But if you are able to just stand still and do your own thing, right, you can do some pretty crazy fun things. So yeah, nothing has changed on that regard, so hopefully in the future here in the Shadowlands beta. Now, let's talk about Covenants and then Legendaries and then wrap up. Now, I do also want to mention one thing, which I think Demo right now also needed a big cooldown, right? A big payoff. Because right now, the way I feel that when I'm playing my demo, even in BFA was the same. You're just building and building and building. Let's imagine, you are in a patchwork like fight, right? So you don't have any mechanics or any other interruptions where it disrupts the flow of the spec, right? And you can just do your own thing. And you're just building and building and building, and you're just getting a lot of imps, you're just having this perfect uptime on your Dress Stalkers, on your Vile Fiends, and your other cooldowns. You're doing some really juicy demonic Tyrants, so you have a lot of pets up at the same time, they're doing a lot of damage. You're even using Nether Portal, and you're getting even more demons in. And that's all very fun and it's fantastic, it's awesome. But you're just building and building and building, but then there's no big payoff, right? You don't have, like, say, the Legion artifact ability, where it was this big payoff ability that was based on the minions that you have up for this really big hit, right? For this really big ability. You don't really have that now. You just build, and then it kind of goes down, and you keep that up, and then you have more when your cities come up, and you're just building, then building, and building, and building, and you're not really getting anywhere. You're just keeping that up, you're just keeping dots, but you don't really have that big moment, right? And I think it's missing that big moment. I think that what could help rather is something like the Legion artifact ability, maybe a Doomguard that has some crazy interaction with your minions. So imagine you have a Doomguard CD, it's on like a big CD, maybe like 3 minutes, and his damage is also based on the amount of minions that you have up. So when you summon him and you have a lot of minions up, so the skill cap involved here on demo, he would do a lot of damage. That could potentially be cool. It feels very demo-esque, Doomguards are awesome, and you would have that big payoff, and would be connected to a minion, to a demon, and not necessarily a spell damage ability like it was in Legion. So that could potentially be cool, but yeah, that's just my thoughts on the overall spec right now, just kind of missing that big payoff. So with that said, let's talk about Covenant abilities. Now, as I said, we don't have conduits. Conduits could also do some wonders here for demo. You never know what we might get on conduits. There might be a lot of cool things there, but again, we cannot test that. But what we can test is Covenant abilities. Now, none of them are particularly interesting for Demonology Warlock, in my opinion. So, for example, we have Decimating Bolt, which was pretty cool for destruction. You had some pretty cool interactions with Fire and Brimstone, just to deal a lot of big incinerate damage. But here, essentially, if you don't know the ability, you have this 45-second cooldown ability that you can use. You're going to get this buff, which is 3 stacks. I think that is going to increase your Shadow Bolt damage by 200%. And as the target health decreases, so does the percentage increases. I think it goes up till 400%, so double. Now, again, this Destruction is pretty cool. Affliction is also pretty cool because you can kind of double dip on that if you're using Drained Soul with the Execute mechanic, the talent rather. But here in demo is based on your Shadow Bolts. Now your Shadow Bolts hit very low, right? They don't hit as hard as your Incinerates or your Drained Souls. Those are the filler of those specs, but they hit harder than Shadow Bolts because as demo you also have your Demon Bolts. So it feels very underwhelming. Now, yes, you have some synergies. You can go for Sacrifice Souls, the talent, to further increase the Shadow Bolt damage based on your demons that you have active, that you have summoned. You can go into From the Shadows to further increase the shadow damage by 20% on your Dread Stalkers. So you do have some synergies, but even with those synergies, Shadow Bolt is not hitting all that hard, so it feels again very underwhelming, which is a little bit sad. Maybe if this was on Demon Bolt, that could be more interesting because it would still have all those synergies plus Power Siphon. So maybe that could potentially be a little bit more interesting there for demo to have some really big Demon Bolts. So that would be my suggestion, is to apply that little components there to Demon Bolt. It still is a filler spell in a way. Well, it's a main way to build demonic cores, but still, it's not its huge spell. And in fact, the base damage that Demon Bolt has, it's the same base damage that Incinerates have. So I think that's just fair, in my opinion, to have those on Demon Bolts. So yeah, that's Decimating Bolt. Then we have Impending Catastrophe. This is the Venthyr Covenant ability, and it's a very cool looking ability. It's kind of like an anime-like ability. You just summon this big orb, and it will travel, and it will damage targets in their path, so you have to position yourself decently for that as well. And when it reaches a target, it will apply a dot, it will explode, and then will apply a dot, a simple damage dot, and it will also apply a random curse. Curse of Tongues or Curse of Weakness. So there's a nice utility component to it as well. Now, other than that, it's a pretty boring ability, other than what it looks, because it has no really synergies with the spec. It's just something that you're gonna press on cooldown, it does damage, it looks cool, that's really about it. Obviously, you do have soulbinds to take in mind in the Venthyr Covenant as well, and conduits that will specifically benefit Impending Catastrophe that we don't know what are they. But yeah, right now it's really boring. You just press it, it deals damage, and there's really not much besides that for demo. Then you have Soul Rot. Now, Soul Rot is another one that feels a little bit useless. Essentially, it's this ability that you can use. It will damage a target and 3 additional targets, and it will apply a dot that will last for 8 seconds, and while that dot is up, your drain life is gonna trigger on all those 4 targets. So you're essentially gonna get the cleave AoE drain life, which looks very cool, but also feels like a waste of time. Literally a waste of time. The minutes that you spend casting that drain life, it's minutes that you could be building soul shards, that you need to be building soul shards to keep the flow of the spec, of keeping your imps up, of keeping your rest lockers and so on. Time is very precious in Demonology. You need that uptime to perform well, and that's also their con, but you need that uptime, and this ability is completely ruining that. Now, you can just rely on the damage that it deals, which is fine, but it also is taking away 20% of your health, because the ability is somewhat emphasizing that you should use drain life after it to have that health back, essentially. So yeah, it feels weird. It feels like a waste of time for Demonology, just like it was for Destruction. You do have a synergy with a Legendary, which is increasing the amount of damage that drain life takes every time. But yeah, not very interesting. Then we have the Kyrian Covenant ability, which is scoring Tide, which will deal arcane damage. It's essentially a dot that will apply. It will deal damage instantly and then will deal damage over time. And if the target dies while it's active, you're gonna gain 5 soul shards, which is obviously very nice. This will help your dungeon runs, your mythic pluses, to just get a lot of soul shards when targets die, which will mean, more imps for your implosions and so on. And the cool thing about it is that it also feels a little bit versatile, because if you use it on a target and it doesn't die, so let's say a boss, the ability cooldown is simply refreshed, so it's something that you're simply gonna keep up. So it's a very safe ability that you can use. You have some benefit if targets die, so in a dungeon, and if they don't, if you're in a raid, if you're killing a boss, and it doesn't have adds that you can take advantage of, it is simply a damage dot, right? It's just a dot that you can keep up. So it's very simple, not much to say about that. It has some cool synergies, has some cool usefulness. You can do some cool things with ads and so on. So it's solid. So that covers our Covenant abilities. Not super interesting. They're just fine for demo, at least for now. Again, they might suffer changes. We can have conduits as well that will change those abilities a little bit. So do take that in mind. And again, we have soulbinds also to take in mind as well for demo. Now, we have legendaries to talk about. Now, I did mention one, which it was about refunding soul shards on red stalkers, but we have a couple of other interesting ones, like this one, which is causing your implosion when it damages at least 3 targets. You're gonna gain haste, 5% haste for 8 seconds for each imp exploded. Now let's assume you're gonna use 6 imps per implosion, or 9 imps per implosion. What essentially this provides is that in Mythic Plus, your rotation and your ramp-up time gets lessened. It helps a lot with the flow of demo in Mythic Plus, because what it offers essentially is every time you use Implosion, you're going to get a lot of haste, a huge amount of haste, like 50, 60, 70% haste, and that will mean that you can just build imps, you can build Hand of Gul'dans really quickly, because you're going to be building soul shards very quickly, and that will mean more imps and more implosions, and so it makes the flow of the spec in Mythic Plus really nice. We also have pretty simple ones, like each soul shard spent on your Hand of Gul'dan is going to increase the damage of your next called Dreadstalkers by 3%, so overall just a nice flat damage increase that is also based on how well you perform, which is nice. This I think was a Legion tier set that we had, so nice overall. We also have this one, which is very similar, just nice overall, which every soul shard that is spent produces the cooldown of Demonic Tyrant by 0.3 seconds, so overall also very nice. Obviously things like this needs to be simmed to figure out what ones are the best ones, but these feel very solid. They are based on how well you perform gameplay wise, how well you are spending and using your soul shards, so that's nice. Then we have this one, which I find a little bit weird, which is Shadow Bolt increases the damage of your next Demon Bolt by 25%, stacking up to 4 times. Now, this feels useful like in your openers. You're getting bigger Demon Bolts, which has synergy with Sacrifice Souls, and even from the Shadows and Power Siphon. But the thing with this is, in the middle of the fight, especially when, you're getting a lot of Demonic Core procs for your Demon Bolts, you're not going to cast Shadow Bolts all that often in between your Demon Bolts, so there's a lot of moments where you're not really utilizing this legendary to its fullest. It feels very weird because I have this legendary that is telling me to cast Shadow Bolts, but in moments I don't want to cast Shadow Bolts. I have Demon Bolts to use, which are far more effective. So I find that a little bit weird to use. It's nice, but I do find that weird because you cannot simply just fill in with Shadow Bolts and then for Demon Bolts. That's not how you play the spec. So I do find that odd and very difficult to actually take full advantage out of this legendary. So maybe they should take a look at this one too. So overall, that covers it. That covers Demonology. Now, as I said, Demo Warlock still has the same old issues, and I really love it still. I really love Demo still. Is it as fun as it was pre-Legion? Well, that's subjective, but I love the theme of Demo. I love Unholy Decays, for an example, and Demo Warlocks is right up my alley. I love summoner type specs, summoner type things, and I think what Warlock needs, at least if it stays the way it's played, we need a big payoff ability, and we need more cool demons to summon. Come on, we cannot just rely on imps and dogs and demon dogs, right? We need more cool stuff. We need Doom Guards, for God's sake. There's so many crazy demon models, some crazy demon characters in the game. Why can we control those? Why cannot we make use of those for some crazy fun times here on Demo? And obviously the ramp up times, target switching, all of that, all those old issues are still very much present. Obviously the changes help, the changes do help, and we might have conduits that may help further, but yeah, they're still in place, which is sad, and I hope that Demonology in time may find its place. I for sure love playing it. If I don't care about numbers and all of that, I have a blast on my Demonology Warlock, even though that it can be very annoying at times when, our flow gets disrupted by realistic scenarios in fights, and we have to start up all over again, and that really kind of sucks. But hey, do let me know what you think about Demo down below. What do you like to see? I think there's crazy awesome ideas in the community about Demo Warlocks, and do let me know those down below. And again, remember, this is not finalized, and there might be more changes. Alright guys, thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next time.